Hi, and welcome to Mountain Aromatics. I'm trying to give you guys some short videos to watch, and each one of them is by subject. So I tackle one specific subject at a time. So what I wanted to do today is, it is from somebody who wrote in, Brian S. Maybe you don't want me to use your name, so I'm just going to say Brian S. He wrote in and he was asking me, he's like, okay, so I have a fragrance, Tommy Bahama Set Sail, and it's a Set Sail something else. I don't remember the whole name, but it's Tommy Bahama Set Sail, which he says is a very, because I don't know what it smells like, but it's a men's fragrance. More than likely it smells really citrusy and bright. And he was asking, can I put a fixative in that to make it last longer, because it doesn't last nearly as long as I want it to? And the answer to that is yes, you can. There's some caveats, and that's why I'm doing this video. So just knowing that when you add fixatives, it depends on the fixative that you use, because there are a lot of fixatives that have an aroma that's going to change your fragrance that you're wanting to make last longer. Again, Brian asked, I have Tommy Bahama Set Sail and I want it to last longer, and I want to add my own fixative to it. That's what I'm tackling today. So he asked about adding ambroxan because it is it's a base note that lasts 400 hours. And he's like, oh, it's a fixative. What about using ambroxan? So there's two ambroxans that are a little bit different. This ambroxan is KO, is the company, KAO, ambroxan KO, that is a company. And then I also have ambroxan from IFF. And the reason I would say I don't think I would necessarily use ambroxan is because, number one, you have to use ambroxan in a low dose, and it's powerful. It will, to me, change that formula a little too much. I don't know that you're necessarily going to like the big change that you're changing your Tommy Bahama Set Sail. It's just going to change the formula a little too much. If you're wanting to have the Tommy Bahama Set Sail fragrance to stay the same, you probably don't want to use the ambroxan. And you would have to use it at such a low dose, it's not going to give you that much longevity. It's just that Tommy Bahama Set Sail is going to go away, and you're going to be left with the aroma of the ambroxan, and that's all you're going to smell like. And that's not what you're wanting to happen. So I have some alternatives that might be better, and that is Fixative 505E. This one is, obviously it's called Fixative, so it's a fixative. Like Fix-a-Boy, that's a fixative, hence the name F-I-X, fix. So anything that has that in the name is going to be a fixative. But Fixative 505 is going to be one that doesn't have a strong, different aroma to it. So you could use it, and it's not going to change the aroma near as much as the ambroxan would. So this is a good alternative to making your fragrance last longer, a fragrance that you bought and that you have and you're wanting it to last longer. This is a good alternative. But also, I think, well, I'm going to just finish these, and he had a question, and I'll answer that next question after that. Another good fixative is Herculin D. These fixatives that I'm telling you about now are fixatives that won't change the direction of your formula. It pretty much makes it stay the same. The Herculean D is still, it's a warm amber. It is mild, very, very mild. It is crazy thick. You guys know it. It's just so crazy thick, like one drop. You have to, I'm squeezing it over and over, and it just drops like cold honey. That's how it drops. It just drops as cold honey. But this, a bunch of you will not even detect this. It's just, to me, it's one of my, it is my favorite fixative. It just doesn't have an aroma much at all, and it really can help. It doesn't mean, oh, I have a total citrus formula and I'm going to add this and it's going to make my citrus last way, way longer. It doesn't work. It doesn't quite work that way, although it is helpful, because otherwise I wouldn't do this video. I would just tell you it doesn't work. It helps a little bit. If Al-Safir is asking, is it restricted by IFRA? The Herculean D, I'm afraid to, I don't think so. What I was going to do was I was going to go to switch to go to creating perfume to check it out. Oh, the 505. I typically write, or I usually always write in red on my bottle if it is restricted and I don't have anything on here. I will tell you the average use. It doesn't mean how much you're supposed to use, but the average use of the Fixative 505E from Firmenich is 3% in your formulation. But I do not have it as restricted, and the Herculean D I do not have as restricted either. Although it is up to you to double check. Why? I don't know when you're watching this. You could be watching this years later from when I make it, and the IFRA has created and implemented a new restriction, and they do that all the time with materials. One day they're restricted, or one day they're not restricted, and then one day they are. Which fixative should I add to my mild and light ATARs? Oh my God, what an amazing question. I'm telling you, the Herculean D is what a lot, there's two things for ATARs. There's the Herculean D, and there is sandalwood. So you want to get, if you use a sandalwood, this is where, if you are making an ATAR, you want to use a really, really good sandalwood. And to me, that's the first line of what you want to do to keep it at a hot or an like high end. Use a really good quality sandalwood. And that, so an ATAR is, what is an ATAR? Perfect. So an ATAR is when you, I have one. So an ATAR is where you take a, like an absolute, let's say orange, orange flower absolute at 100%, and you add 25% orange flower absolute and 75% high-end quality sandalwood. You put that together and you have 100%. You let that sit on a shelf and just do its thing for 6 months. And that is an ATAR. And there are fragrances that are made from just that ATAR. So they will take that 6 months down the line, and they will make a fragrance just out of that. So they will make a 20% fragrance from that ATAR. Or they will take that ATAR and that will be one of 5 materials that are in a fragrance. So they'll take that ATAR and they will add a couple of other ingredients, but it is the star of the show. It is a very old world Arab method, absolutely. And it is just crazy. You can do that if you have, and look, make a tiny, it is crazy expensive. I get it. But do it this way. Get your tiny 2 mil and you want to weigh it out. So get your your scale and do a tiny ATAR. So let's say you're going to do 1 mil. So you're just going to weigh out. You can get tuberose absolute, or you can do what is very common is a rose absolute. So get a rose absolute 100%, and of the 1 mil, do 25% of that, your rose absolute, and then 75% of high-end sandalwood. The other thing that you can do is there are a number of people who will use the Herculean D. Why will they use Herculean D? Because there's no aroma with the Herculean D. And I'll just be honest with you, the Herculean D is really cheap. It is. It's not expensive at all. That's one reason why it's a great fixative for your formulas. But if you want to be hardcore, a true ATAR, a true ATAR is, hello from India. That's awesome. So a true ATAR is going to be a really high-end sandalwood and let's say 100% oud. So you can do an oud, and that is incredibly common as well. You're getting a pure high-end oud and make 25% of that oud and then 75% of it a high-end. Look, if you have a tiny bit of real high-end oud, use the sandalwood. I would tell you to do that instead of the Herculean D. Like, that's expensive. The oud is expensive, and keep it high-end with the high-end sandalwood of 75%. That's what I would do if I were you. But you don't have to do some big thing. Do a small amount. If you wanted to, just as a small trial, take it down even more. 1 drop to do a 75%, you're going to do 1 drop of oud and 3 drops of sandalwood, a high-end sandalwood, and let that sit for a while. That's a tiny amount, but you could do that and see how it works for you because it's so expensive. But and Alsafir is saying sandalwood has a very, very long life odor. Yes, sandalwood is like 400 plus hours, but also sandalwood is one of those that you can age. So the same thing with oud. So you can make this ATAR, this oud sandalwood ATAR, and 4 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it's going to be even better. Keep it undiluted. Please keep it undiluted. That is super important. And when you're ready to make your fragrance, then you'll take this undiluted 100% and you will make a fragrance with it at 10%, 20%, 25%, whatever. but you're keeping this undiluted and letting it age, letting it age, letting it age. So okay. And I buy ready-made ATAR from our fragrance market, but there is no longevity and no good concentration. So what should I do to increase the lasting and concentration of ATARs? That is, if you're buying a ready-made ATAR and there's no longevity and no good concentration, that is a red flag to me. That is a red flag to me. That something is not right. If you're buying it and it is not very cheap, you're getting it diluted. I mean, my first thought is you're buying something that's diluted, because it should be highly concentrated, because the 25% of it's either going to be oud, or it's going to be the rose, or it's going to be tuberose, or it's going to be jasmine, absolute. All of these are absolutes that I'm saying, or that kind of a thing. It's undiluted. It's a concentrate. So it should be highly concentrated when you buy it. It just somehow it's making me think that they're diluting it before they're selling it. That's the only thing I can tell you. That there's a red flag there. That does not make sense to me. ATARs are going to have tons of longevity. And again, I may be repeating myself or telling you something that's just obvious, but an ATAR is super concentrated, completely undiluted, high end, and it is two things. It is going to be either sandalwood or Herculean D. Herculean D is way an easy, cheaper way to make it, but your real typical ATAR is going to be two things: 75% high-end sandalwood, 25% 100% absolute, rose absolute, oud, or tuberose, or absolute, that kind of a thing. That's when a ATAR is highly expensive, just super expensive, super high end. And then you let it age and age and age. I did my ATAR is sandalwood and orange flower absolute. And it's 9 months old now. Is it ever Amy is asking, is it ever desired to dilute an ATAR? No, do not dilute your ATAR. I have my ATAR that's over there. You do not dilute it. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but two things are done with that undiluted. There are times they will take it and they will use that concentrate and just use that super concentrated. And then there are times they will take that and they will make a fragrance just from that. And they will make a 40%, 50%, 20%. They will make a fragrance just from the ATAR, which is two materials. Then you can take that ATAR and it could be one of, in a formula, it could be one of 4 materials in your formula. Because you want this to shine. This is the star of the show. So you want it out front and maybe put 3 materials behind it that are kind of light and don't show up too much, whatever. And that can be your fragrance. But ATARs are really, really cool. I didn't realize I'd be getting off on ATARs like this. But so let me make sure I'm answering more of your questions, because this is not talked about that much. So so Al-Safir is like, he's talking to the other person, but I want to just mention it. He's like, these two companies that usually market diluted with unknown solvents, blah, blah, blah. Right. If you are purchasing an ATAR, a true ATAR, let's say 2 mils of it, you're going to pay out the butt. It's expensive, super expensive, because it is an undiluted absolute with a high-end sandalwood. That's a true ATAR. So, the best place to buy sandalwood. So, there is 2 places that carry real. I mean, they're expensive. I'm gonna just put it out there. I mean, expensive, but amazing. Eden Botanicals has several types and from different places, different sources of sandalwood. So it's a great place to, in fact, I think they have a trial, like a sample pack that you can buy. And yes, it's expensive, but it's a sample pack of a bunch of different sandalwoods. So that's an option. So that's a great place to buy sandalwood. And then another great place is White Lotus Aromatics. They have a number of sandalwoods from a number of other places. And creating perfume, I'm at a loss. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Why? Why don't I know? No, I think they do have one that is just real pure sandalwood, the real deal sandalwood. But that's where you can get some really high-end sandalwoods. And again, it won't take much to use it because it's just so concentrated and that kind of a thing. So yes, sorry, I'm having to read because I want to make sure I answer your questions. He said, yes, they dilute it. They make 10 grams ATAR of 1 gram of original ATAR. I think he's saying that's 1 to 10 ratio. Dave, does Eden Botanical have pure sandalwood? Yes, they have many types. Use it neat then? Amy, yes, there are people that will use it neat. Again, I'm going to tell you, Ifra will be like, no, because it depends on, like Rose, for example, they will be like, hell no. Rose is incredibly restricted. But if you are using it for you, then you can do whatever you want. Well, you're like, Dave, have you ever used it neat? Your ATAR? Yeah. I didn't break out nothing. Yeah, if you're wanting me to be honest, absolutely I have. But yes, White Lotus Aromatics. But yes, it is one of those things that depending on what you use, especially Rose, it's going to be beyond restricted. You will have to make a fragrance at 1% with your Rose ATAR. See, so let me say this. So if I say I have a Rose ATAR, I am meaning I have a Rose Absolute at 25%, 75% sandalwood. So that's how it's usually said is I have a Rose ATAR. I have an Orange Blossom ATAR. I have a Tuberose ATAR. You're meaning 25% of the tuberose, 75% of your sandalwood. Again, you can do the 75% with the Herculean D. You can, absolutely. It has tons of longevity. It's very stable, the Herculean D, all of that kind of stuff. Absolutely. Just know that is not your real typical ATAR. Your true ATARs are hardcore, and they're made up of the sandalwood and whatever your absolute is. Okay. For example, I'm reading. I am having a 6 ml roll-on ATAR bottle. So how much fixative should I add in that 6 ml roll-on bottle, and how much light ATARs and how much strong ATARs? Okay. Your typical like real ATAR is at 25%. So if you want a light ATAR, go with 10%. I mean, there's no hard and fast rule here, but if you want to know what is a true ATAR, I kind of told you what that is. So you can deviate from that. If you want to make a light ATAR that's not that expensive, use 10% of some type of I'm losing my words now. Absolute, and then 90% of Herculean D. That will give you a very light, inexpensive ATAR, though it's not true, but it can work. You can absolutely do that. Yeah. But if you have a 6 ml, it's just of the 6 ml, you're going to do 25% of that as you need to do the math of 25% of that is going to be your absolute, and 75% of the 6 ml is going to be your sandalwood. What is the name of the second place? Thank you. You guys did answer it. So Eden Botanicals and White Lotus Aromatics. Dave, excuse me. These companies have a lot of oils in the Asian market and African market. They make good fragrances. They only copy the perfumes in the market and sell it as fragrances. Just copy and paste GCMS. Yeah, $175 per 1 ounce. That's actually not that expensive. $175 for an entire ounce? That does not sound like a true ATAR. Yeah, because of a 1 ounce, if you're talking 25% of that being an absolute, holy Moses, that's going to be $300 or more just for the 25% for that absolute. Oh, for sandalwood. Okay, yes. $175 for a 1 ounce sandalwood is absolutely correct. That sounds perfect. That sounds right. That sounds absolutely right. So I want to make sure I got to I need to go back to where we were, because that's my whole point of making this for Brian S. So he said, I have a Tommy Bahama set sail, and it's very citrusy, and I want it to last longer. So I was giving him some fixatives that he wants to take his Tommy Bahama and add a fixative to it himself. So I said Fixative 505. I said Herculean D. Another one is going to be, I hate saying this name because I can't do it. Gurjun Balsam. Gurjun Balsam. It is a warm, kind of nutty wood fixative. It's a little refreshing. It's a great blender And it's really a light smell. That's why I picked it. It's because it's very, very light. It's very watery. So this one's not thick at all, but it is a good blender. So, and fixative. So those are my top 3 that I would use. And he's like, well, how do I mix it? Okay, get out your scale. And if you have like a glass beaker, I don't know, like a 50 ml glass beaker, put it on the scale, tear it out, meaning bring it to 0. And then what you can do is pour your Tommy Bahama in there, weigh it out, write down how much it weighs in grams, and then remember that's going to be an undiluted. So if you're wanting to be super technical, you need to know what that fragrance is, what the concentrate is of that fragrance. Is it a 10% Tommy Bahama? If it is, that means of all of that weight, just 10% of it is your fragrance concentrate. So what I would do is with your Herculean D, just start with a drop, but then before you do your drops, tear it out, and then you bring it to 0, and then add your fixative in there, but weigh your fixative and write down your weight. But just start with a drop or 2. This is one of those things where I don't know how to answer you because I don't know the percentage, but you are going to be like, well, how much do I put in there? Well, these are not restricted, so you can, I don't know, put between 1 and 5 drops in a, like a 1 ounce to 3 ounce bottle or 2.7 ounce bottle, and start with that. Because then you can pour that back into your bottle and spray it on you, or spray it on the test strip, see how long it lasts. If it's working better for you, if it's not, pour that back in, add 1 more drop. I mean, you could technically, if you're just on your own, and I'm just doing this for me because it sounds like that's what you're doing. You're taking your fragrance that you have, your Tommy Bahama, and I want it to last longer. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of fixative to it. Unscrew the top and put a drop or 2 in there. Put the top back on, shake it up, spray it on the tester and see how long it works. You can do that. That's really simple. You're just doing it for yourself. So that's what I would do. Al-Safir, thank you so much for going to Eden Botanicals. We have the Australian sandalwood. Amazing. Really, really good. Al-Safir, like 1 to 2 drops for a 5 ml. Yeah, that sounds good. Because the thing is if it's not quite enough, open your fragrance and put a couple of more drops. You're just making it for yourself and they're not restricted. So Brian S., I hope this is helpful for you. And so we did 2 things today. We talked about how to, if you have your own like Tommy Bahama light citrusy fragrance, how can I at home make that last longer with a fixative? That's one thing. The other thing that we discussed were ATARs, true ATARs, and kind of making your own true ATAR and making your own ATAR that is similar but way, way cheaper. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to do another live video right after this one. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your love and support for Mountain Aromatics. If you like this and it helps educate you, then consider donating to my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/Mountain Aromatics, and that would be awesome. Even $1 helps. That would be appreciated. If you like this, give me a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe, and hopefully I will educate you more on the next Mountain Aromatics. Have a good day.